Okay, we're starting. That's where we're at, Daniel 5:22. Okay. And I don't know anything else to announce. We're just going. This Wednesday is our hand chimes choir practice. If you're coming for the potluck, and then for Wednesday it'd be the choir practice this time. The next Bible study we do will be on original sin. Okay. I still want to do a big one on baptism, but I have to do a lot of research and I haven't even started really. But we have to. It helps to understand original sin first before we do the baptism, so we'll understand why baptism for infants is important. Okay, so that's why we're going to do one on original sin first. Logically, it progresses that way. All right. So here we go. We're on Daniel 5, starting at verse 22. This is the famous the writing on the wall scene, and I got to find his translation here. Oops, where is his translation? Okay. Starting verse 22. But you, his son Belshazzar, did not humble your heart, although you knew all this. Instead, you lifted yourself against the Lord of heaven. The vessels of his house were brought before you, and you and your nobles, your wives, and your concubines drank wine from them. Then you praised the gods of silver and gold, bronze, iron, wood, and stone, who do not see and do not hear and do not know. But you did not honor the God in whose hand is your breath, and who owns all your ways. Then from him was sent the back of the hand, and this writing was inscribed. All right, let's do verse 24. All right, so to get you up to snuff on this, Daniel was already there, or is there now. He's been brought in by King Belshazzar after seeing the writing on the wall, and he's already addressed Belshazzar somewhat, which we looked at last week, saying that, your father Abraham was such that, or Nebuchadnezzar was such that, I actually heard myself say that. Sometimes you just ramble, you don't even hear yourself say it. But Nebuchadnezzar was smarter than you are, okay? And he humbled himself when he needed to be humbled. You did not do that. So as he's addressing Belshazzar here, he really minces no words. He has no reason to be polite and cordial because he knows Belshazzar's doomed. This is it. Whereas with Nebuchadnezzar, if you remember back on the times when he talked with Nebuchadnezzar, he's very diplomatic. He doesn't need to be that way now. He's just you're a dead man. Well, I just basically he knows that. He hadn't said that, but basically that's what it's going to be. You're a dead man, and this is it. So, and this is why. So what reasons? There's actually 3 reasons given. He just came by himself, huh? There are 3 reasons given. Oh, this. Oh, okay. Do you get, Chris? You're taking this right? Okay. He gives 3 reasons as to why Belshazzar is a doomed dead man. Okay, and if you look at it, I'll just tell you real quick what they are, just because we go through this. Okay, first of all, they drank from the vessels of gold that were taken from God's holy temple. All right, so they obviously are desecrating what it was considered to be sacred. That's the first one. Second one, and you see a progression here that's really kind of important to note. The second one, as they're drinking from these vessels, what are they doing? They're praising their gods. And then he even gives a description, Daniel does, of the nature of their gods. And what did he say? I have to go back and find it again.
They can't hear, they can't speak, they don't know.
And they don't know. Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right. So it's kind of similar to if you read a lot of the Old Testament prophecies, whenever the prophets, whether it's the minor or major prophets or even just in the historical books, are denouncing either the pagans or denouncing Israelites for worshiping false gods, they often say that. They can't see or hear or walk. This one says don't know, but it's the same thing. You worship things that can't do anything, and you expect them to do what? To give you life and and bless you with your life. So how stupid are you? Is basically what the whole point is, and that's kind of the same here. This is what you're doing. You're worshiping these gods that can literally do nothing. They're just an idol thing. All right. Then the third thing. So he went from you took the vessels from God's temple. You worshipped worthless, lifeless gods, and now you don't honor the God. And how does even the true God? And how does he describe the true God in context with Belshazzar himself? He says, "You did not honor the God in whose hand is your breath." Isn't that a cool way of saying it? I mean, he's going to take your breath out. Yeah, and actually, think about I'm sure this wasn't the point, but Genesis 2, God breathed into his nostrils, and Adam became a living being. So life is always the breath of God. And it's given to every human being, every creature actually, but whether you're a Christian or non-Christian, but it's always in his hands. And so in this case, that's what he's saying. He holds your next breath, is basically what he's saying, and owns all your ways. All right, so then he said, okay, so that's the part there that is Daniel's just very straightforward, blunt, cutting remark. You're doomed. All right. So I liked what the commentator says here at the end of this section. He says, if Belshazzar did not understand that the message was going to be one of judgment and condemnation before this, he surely must have been prepared for it now. Because Daniel's basically saying this is it. Okay. So then he starts explaining okay, here we go. I'll read it now. Now, this is the writing that is inscribed. Mene, mene, tekel, parsin. That's actually literally what the words are, okay, in the Aramaic, okay, in Hebrew, I guess. Okay, and so then he says in verse 26, this is the meaning of the message. All right, so I'm not going to read that all right now because this will take a little while, but it's really worth doing. Remember last week I said that the words would have been very difficult. I'm not going to write them back up there again in Hebrew. Would have been really difficult to understand because in all likelihood the words were not separated into separate words, but they all 9 letters is what it's going to be. Because in Hebrew, all verbs are, not all nouns, but all verbs are 3 letters. Okay, so there's 9 letters. And so they didn't know how to divide it up because not all nouns are divided into 3 letters. Some are 2, some are 4, some, whatever. So no one could figure out what it meant. But now when Daniel is interpreting it, so it really shows that even Daniel could not figure this out. Only God can give this message. It's a code, really. And so what it is the 3 words, when he divides it up, which is mene and tekel and parsin, they are a play on words. Okay, and that's when Daniel does the interpretation, he's going to make this word play come out. All right, which is just genius, of course, because God did this. And so here we go. We'll go through the first one. The first one is mene. Okay, now let's see if I can find where he starts with that. Okay, also note this. The 3 words involve weights. And they're really weights in regard to money. But money wasn't really necessary a means of exchange at that point in the sense of coinage. They hadn't coined money, but they weigh silver and gold, and so it's all weighed. All right, so you understand that, right? So I'll explain that. All right, so it's three weights. All right, the first one I will kind of write this down just so show you this. First one is menah. Okay. Oh, I forgot what the vowel points. This is the key: is making sure your vowel points are right. Exactly. That's what makes this so mysterious. Okay? Yeah. So the vowels were added later. Okay? What the vowels are these things underneath. It's supposed to be just a straight, it's kind of exaggerated size, but all right. So menah, that word means counted. All right, and you have it already in front of you what the translation of these words are going to mean. That means counted. Okay? Now, the word before that in the Hebrew, or in the text, is okay. Do you see any difference? But there is a difference, and it's that little thing here as opposed to that. This is manah, this is maneh. That's an A sound, that's an ah. It's an A, but it's a short A. It's an ah and a long A. Okay? That's what, when Daniel is interpreting, this is what he's saying, manah, maneh. Manah, maneh. You heard that song? On the Muppets. Yeah, they're Jewish. The Muppets are Jewish. Okay. All right. This is mina. What we would say mina. You've heard the term mina before, haven't you? It's a weight measurement for really for coinage, for dealing with commerce. Okay. So what he says is mene. He says mene. That one comes first. Mene. God has manah your kingdom and paid it out. So he says he says what the first word is. The first word is mene. Now, and by the way, in your translation, it will repeat the word mene, tekel. But in all likelihood, he's just saying that for emphasis. It's really just the three words. It's not that this one was repeated. I'm trying to explain it. So mene, and so he's trying to say that. So he didn't have to do it for the next word, because the next one now will be emphasized, should be emphasized. So he says mene, and then he interprets it. God has manad. God has counted your kingdom. All right, and then the rest of the word in Daniel's interpretation, which is not what's on the writing on the wall, says God has counted it and has paid it out. So what that really means here, or seems to mean, is that he paid it out means and brought it to an end. Or in other words, it can be like it's a debt that you owe this debt, and he's collecting. Your debt is that you have been disobedient to him. Your sin, the wages of sin. Okay, you owe this debt, and it's being paid out. And so now what's happening is God is repossessing his property, which is this kingdom. He gave it to Nebuchadnezzar. And it's always important to know, and if you went way back to the beginning of the book of Daniel, it doesn't say that, the way Daniel phrases is not that Nebuchadnezzar just conquered the people, but that God gave the kingdom to Nebuchadnezzar. And Nebuchadnezzar, in the two times of the visions and being humbled, he's being told again, you only have this is because I let you have this. You did not do this by yourself. So you owe everything to me. And so that's the idea. Nebuchadnezzar apparently somewhat realized that, but Belshazzar does not realize that. And God says, I'm repossessing my property. So that's what that first line means. Okay? So when he says that, he's saying, God has counted the kingdom, your kingdom, and it's paid out, or in other words, he's taking it back again. And then he's going to give it to someone else. Okay, so the next word is, let me erase that. The next word is also going to be a play of words. Okay, the next word is tekal. Okay. Whoa. Okay. Okay. All right, Tekal, T-K-L. There's your dot and a dot, okay? And that's a dot and a dot and above. Okay, it's a shawah, and that's a, anyway. All right, Tekal. So Tekal means, now it's slightly different in the English. Tekal, and in English you would, so it's this. I'm going to write it in English. I got to write it right to left, or left to right, not right to left. Okay. It's this in English. But now you know of a word that is this, but in English it's not tekel. It's what's a measure of weight that sounds like tekel? Tekel. Sounds like tekel, shekel. Okay, that's what this is. It's the word for shekel. Okay, have you ever heard that word? Okay, so that's what that word is. Okay, now it's okay. So the word is shekel. So he says tekel, and then he says, where is it? Tekal. There it is. So then he says, I think that's it. I gotta find it again. Yeah. Okay. Actually, there's a dot in there. Okay. So now, see the three letters? That's supposed to have a dot in it, by the way. Anyway, see the three letters? The three letters are the same, but now that has changed to one dot and a long line. Okay? So I know this may bore you, but it's just fascinating if you were to read the Hebrew text what's going on here. He says, tekel, and so that means shekel. And then he says, you have been tekaled, okay, in the scales, and you have been found lacking. So tekal means to weigh. Right? So he takes the word for shekel, but when it is used another English word in Hebrew, okay, which is weighed, which is the same letters but just different dotting, okay? And so he says, you have been weighed in the scales and you have been found lacking. Right? Pretty much makes sense. He says, you haven't measured up to what was expected of you. And you know, in that day, I understand how commerce was done. Since they didn't have this is a dollar bill or this is a 50-cent piece, they had weights for coins. And how did they measure things out if you're exchanging things? With a scale. All right? And that's another thing that's mentioned in the prophets a lot about using dishonest scales. Because you know, you have your weight that's wrong. I just heard this because a while back, and it is like this. It was back in the old days when everything's weighed out. Okay, and so a guy bought a pound of bread from a baker. Okay, and he bought a pound of bread from a baker, and he kept buying a pound of bread from a baker. And in exchange, he would give him a pound of butter because this guy was a farmer. Okay, so the baker made the bread, and he had the butter. And so after a while, the story goes that the baker found out that the butter he got in exchange didn't weigh a pound. And it just kept happening over and over and over. And he kept getting really mad because he was being shortchanged. Okay? So he took the other guy to court. And he says, I want you to throw this guy in jail because he's not giving me a pound of butter for a pound of butter. And the guy said, well, I don't have any weights. I just put the bread on one end and measured it with the butter. He got thrown out because the other guy was crooking him, right? Okay, he was cheating him out of a pound of bread. So that's the whole idea. Okay, and so in this case, that's what's happening. On the scale, God has an honest scale. You know, that's justice holding the scales. God has the honest scale, and he's been found lacking. God's is going down because there's not enough weight of holiness in Belshazzar, so it's gone up. So that's what that word means. Okay, you've been found. You've been weighed in scales. You've been found lacking. Okay, the third word is to me the one that's the most fascinating of them, is because of the real big easy play on this word is the word is parson. Okay. Hold it. I can't even read it. I mean, if you look at this text here, that dot is like a 2 font, okay? And you can't even barely see that dot, okay? Okay, so, oops. Boy, that's a really bad letter. Okay. That is really bad. I got practice writing my Hebrew, okay? Okay. Okay, this is basically is like that. You like that? Okay. Pares. That is the word pares. The word pares means half mina. Okay, it's another weight and money, okay, but it's a half mina. Okay, and by the way, he points out that this is also why this whole thing seemed to be confusing, because he started with a mina and went to a shekel, and I think how does it say it? He said, okay. Daniel goes mina, shekel, half mina, okay? And so some scholars have been bothered by the order of the weight since they don't proceed from the heaviest to the lightest, okay? So they think it should say, this one should have gone first, pares, then the tekel, no, then hold it, no. Yeah, it should have said mene, pares, tekel, if you went from heaviest to lightest. So that's the other thing that threw him off, because the weight, you usually say, when you're doing something, you do it in an order, either from descending or ascending order. Okay, these aren't in that order. It's mixed up. This one should have been in the middle. If you're doing it in a certain order, this one would have been in the middle, highest to lowest or heaviest to lightest. Okay, so anyway, what this word means is the word pares. It means half mina, but also then you take the other word that's used here, and you do the same thing, okay? All right, you take the same here, and all you changed here, I think, no, sorry. That changed too. All right, so these letters, vowels, changed. Okay, so this is pares, this is paras. This is a p, real fast. It's not even, you don't really hear the vowel, but you have to say it. That's not even a vowel, that's just a point. Okay, so this is a short A, paras. Okay, now paras, you might guess, if you really think about this, Paras is the name for Persia, right? Makes sense, right? You almost transliterate it, becomes Persia, okay? So what he says in this one is your kingdom, he says Pares, then he says your kingdom has been, before he says this, because he's going to use it, so he's using this word 3 times in this one. Your kingdom has been parasat, which is the same word, you just add a T on the end here, okay? Your kingdom has been parasat and given to the paras, okay? Did you follow me on that? Okay, so he says the weight, and he says, then your kingdom has been parasat, and then given to the paras, or Persians. Now, so parasat means divide. It means to divide. In fact, what this word is in elsewhere in the Bible, if someone's name is Perez, it means divided. Okay, there was as you go back to the list of the nations after the flood, and when it starts, listing off the genealogies, okay, and one has said, and someone had a son, and his name was Perez, because the earth was divided in that day, okay, which they believe he might have been named because that might have been, he was born after the Tower of Babel. In the earth, the people were divided, okay. Some have taken that to mean, that meant the earth was divided when the continents drifted apart, because they used to all be together, okay. So some of them said it that way. But anyway, the point is the word Perez means divide. So Perez is almost like Persia too. So it's roughly the same word. So that's what he says. Your kingdom has been Perezed, divided, broken in two, and given to the Medes and Persians. Okay? So you got the whole thing now? The whole thing, then we'll go back and just read it now, that whole text. Where he says, this is the meaning of the message. A mina means that God has counted your kingdom and paid it out. Shekel means that you have been weighed in the scales and you have been found lacking. And a half mina means that your kingdom has been broken in two and given to the Medes and the Persians. All right, I know I spent a long time saying that, but I just thought it was fun to do the word play on that, because that's what's in the text. The word play is there. It's really fascinating.
So
Okay.
they could have, like, without Daniel, if they could have seen that there were three words there, they would have been three Hebrew words that were just mean different units of weight.
Yes.
Okay. And then from that, he took and used those same similar Hebrew words
Yeah.
to break it down, using it two different ways to say things like counted or
Right,
divided or, okay.
which were words based on those weighted words.
Fair.
Right, words were that are rhyming with them.
So all that Daniel got from God was to use the interpretation of these rhymes that were associated with that. So there's a lot of God speaking through Daniel.
Yes.
Like there's nobody could have ever.
No, that's exactly the point. No one could have figured that out. No one could have made these word plays.
Which makes a lot more sense why.
No one could figure it.
Belshazzar is like, okay,
Yeah,
this guy is
yeah.
doing something here, not like it wasn't just like, oh, I figured out the
Yeah.
context clues here. And I'm a smart guy. It was.
Right, exactly. And that's exactly the point. No one could have figured this out unless he were told by God. The code is only in God's mind. It's like, even if you knew the three words meant three weights, what does that mean? You still don't know what it means. Okay? And so Daniel makes the play that God tells him on those words, and that it takes the words similar to those rhyming words or spelled out words or homonyms, I guess. But and then he says, but those words now mean this. And again, no one could have said, oh, you're right, unless God had done that. So, yeah.
In the ESV, it has like little notes for each like the number of ways in Persian.
Yeah.
And it says it sounds like Aramaic. Like,
Well, it is written in Aramaic. Yeah, right. Yeah. I think this is still Aramaic.
I thought that all of it was Hebrew.
No, I think it went back. No, it did go back to Hebrew. Now that he's done with, he is back in Hebrew again. Yeah.
Say something like, it sounds like the Aramaic for
Yeah.
number.
Aramaic and Hebrew are pretty close. Pretty close. Yeah, pretty close. Not exactly the same. You have to learn Aramaic, which is different Hebrew. The lettering's the same, but it's close. I don't know Aramaic, but but that's what it is. So then we get to when it's done. It says, then Belshazzar spoke, okay. So in other words, okay, Belshazzar immediately recognizes, that's it. Okay, because no one can make up that. I mean, no one on the spot could just make up something like that brilliant. So obviously, God has told you what this means. All right, so then Belshazzar spoke, and they dressed Daniel in purple with a chain of gold around his neck. They proclaimed about him that he was the third ruler in the kingdom. Okay, we'll stop there. And the last verse is the doom one. Okay, so what does Belshazzar do after Daniel does his thing? Makes good on his word. I made this promise to you. Do you think he really wanted to? Probably not right now, because it meant you're dead. Okay, so why? And I mean, I guess we're speculating, but why do you think he followed through on it?
Because he was in the spotlight.
He was on the spot, yeah, and in the spotlight. So who? Yeah.
I think he was trying to bribe God.
Well, no.
Elevating.
I doubt it, because the word's just a definitive statement. This is it. With Nebuchadnezzar, it was like, if you change your ways, then God might do this. But Belshazzar, Daniel doesn't even say you have a chance if you just repent. It's like, well,
If you were given this ticket, oh well, it's over.
yeah, it could be that too. No, it's just speculation. But it's also possible, though, like we're saying, is that I have to honor my word. Okay, I have to, because I just made this promise in front of 1,000 nobles, right? And so who did that in the New Testament and regretted it? Herod, right? That's what I thought. It's a perfect parallel to Herod and Herodias. When his stepdaughter dances for him, he says, I'll give you anything you want, to half the kingdom. And then when she said, get the head of John the Baptist, if you read the text, what does it say? Herod regretted it, but because of his guess, he had to honor it. He would disgrace himself, right? He's not a man of his word, okay? So he had to follow through on it. So he follows through on this. Belshazzar has to follow through on it.
Besides that, if he had gone back on his word, I think he would have created panic in his guests.
Well, that's true. Yeah, yeah. Is the panic among the people?
Yeah.
That's a good point. I thought about that. Yeah.
He's also kind of in a precarious position because he's the only kind of king.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's really, living his dad's shadows, kind of wannabe. I want everyone to think I'm really good and important, but they really don't. They probably talk about me behind my back and all that because dad's the man of the family, kind of thing. Yeah, but he has to follow through on, and he does. And Daniel accepts it. I mean, because he says, "I don't want your stuff," but it's like, I'm not gonna mess with this. Yeah, whatever. Give it to me. We're done. You're done anyway. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters really about this now. So he takes it. Okay, without explanation here. Because in the next verse, in that very night, King Belshazzar the Chaldean was killed, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom. That's the next verse. And Darius the Mede received the kingdom, being about 62 years old. All right? So that very night, and I told you before how that happened. I mean, they are literally outside the walls of Babylon at this very moment. And so at that moment, too, they're apparently getting inside the city. And how I told you how historically how they said they did that. They dried up the river, and then they were able to walk under the city walls where the river flowed, and that's how they got in. Okay, because otherwise there's no way you get through those city walls. But that was it. And then how the Great Wall of China is supposed to keep all the Mongols out and all that, but all they did is bribe the gate. They didn't have to worry about coming over the wall or something like that. That's true. I thought I heard that sometime. The way they got in to conquer was just bribe the gatekeepers. Okay, you don't have to worry about the wall. Just go through the gate if you just bribe the gatekeeper. Okay, to let them in. Okay, but in this case, that's how the Persians got in. So when they got in that very night, Belshazzar's killed. So within hours of this whole thing, he's dead. Okay, so the king replacing him is Darius the Mede. Now so I've been giving a little historical background because now we're in chapter 6. The historical background to this is kind of mysterious, and because of history, we don't always know this. Darius, there's no historical account of Darius. Okay, except in Daniel. But there is of Cyrus, okay? Plenty of Cyrus. I mean, plenty of. Even the Bible has Cyrus named in Isaiah 44. But history knows Cyrus. Darius is the same guy. And that has been, was kind of the mystery that the opponents of Christianity always threw this out. Daniel didn't even know who the right guy was, okay? Then the other guys, the other commentaries are reading said, oh no, this is Darius. We don't know who that is, but there's Darius and Cyrus. They're two different guys. No, that's not true either, okay? So here's the point. He's Darius the what here? The Mede. But when he's ruling, he's Cyrus the Persian, okay? All right, so what that means is that Darius, okay, and what they do know this somehow, he goes through some historical writings. I'm not going to bother to go back and find it. Darius's mother was a Mede. Remember, the empire is not the Persian Empire, it's the Medo-Persian Empire. It's the Medes and Persians. His mother's a Mede, okay? So he's half Mede, and his dad's Persian, he's half Persian. But the Medes are the more powerful of the Medo-Persian alliance right now. They're the more powerful at this moment, okay? In fact, how he got to power, I may mention this, he got to power because he killed his grandfather, who was the ruler of the Medes. So, I mean, love in the family, right? Okay. He killed his grandfather and defeated him, and therefore he took over. And so he took over as Darius the Mede. But then when the Persians become more dominant, he's known as Cyrus the Persian, or he'll become Cyrus the Great. And so, and that's the switch is taking place at this moment. Okay, that the Persians, because now he's ruling really as a Persian, the Persians are taking over. So you probably didn't even really know it as the Medo-Persian Empire. You may have, but you primarily know it as the Persian Empire. Because when we get to Artaxerxes and the battle against the Spartans and all that, and Thermopylae and all, it's the Persians, not the Medo-Persians. So it's the same guy. And what's also fascinating is what Daniel does. He says he was 62 years old. Only time in the Bible, in here that he gives the age of a person. Okay, and Why? Not, I don't really know, but it's kind of intriguing to speculate as to why he might have done this. Okay, and a commentator, he has one suggestion. He says, if you think about this, when the year he was born was like 2 or 3 years after Daniel was taken into captivity. Remember? And it took 3 years of training, then it comes into the court. So it's at that moment, roughly, when Darius is born. So the thought is, see, God already had everything in motion. Long ago, right when, shortly after Daniel and Hananiah, Azariah, Mishael are taken captive, shortly after that, God has this man born, and this man is going to be the one who's going to accomplish this great stuff. But because he can't just pop on the scene, he has to be born at some point. So that's the time he's born, 62 years ago. Okay, so whether that's the real reason, it's just kind of an interesting when you speculate how that works. All right, so that's who this guy is. So when he becomes king, so and the date of this, by the way, is obvious. He becomes king on, or they conquer. Where is it? It's obvious because they had it somewhere else. I think it's October 12th is when Daniel 5 happens, and then it flows into Belshazzar is killed. So the next day is October 13th of 539. All right, that's what, yeah, I do have it here. So that's, it's October 12th, I'm sorry. So October 12th, when the Persians take over of 539. That's kind of neat to know that they know to the day when this happened. October 12th, 539. So I have to give you this little background, and if you get this little background, this will really help to understand the whole point of the lion's den, which is what Daniel 6 is all about. So this is not just boring. This is really necessary to understand this. All right, so you kind of have to understand how things work, and it's not hard to do this. When one, and I mentioned this last time, if Trump gets the election, then all those in those high positions of office that are appointed have to go out and new people come in. All right? So if a Babylonian government is overthrown by a Persian government, what's going to happen? The Persian going to put all his people in, okay? And they need to do it as quickly as possible before you get rebellion and chaos within the city. All right, so what happened is that Cyrus appointed his general, Cyrus takes over, but I don't think, he's not there yet. All right, he takes over, but he's not, historically noticed, he's not there yet. They have records of this, by the way, outside the Bible, so that's what he's saying. So the Persian commander is Gubaru. Gubaru is immediately there. So it's kind of like if you think of armies and fighting, and then when one army conquers the other one, the king's not immediately there. The king's, he's got to be safe, so he's behind, and then when it's secure, the king comes in. You got it? Okay, so that's what happens. Okay, so Gubaru is the governor of Babylon at October 12th, 539. Okay? And then interestingly, and not by any bad means, Gubaru dies the next month. He just dies. Not recorded how he dies. So he dies the next month. Okay? All right, but while Gubaru's there, he's doing everything under the authority of Cyrus. So when it says that Darius, when Darius appointed these satraps, it's Gubaru doing it, okay, under his name. All right, so Gubaru immediately has to switch the government over. All right, so he appoints satraps, and that's just like a governor of a province, okay? And there's 120 of them. That's how big, and it becomes 127, the Persian Empire. There's 127 provinces, okay? So, but right now there's 120. So he appoints them as 120 of them, but then he puts over them 3 others, okay? Okay, Gubaru didn't do it all. He died too quickly. Cyrus has arrived. I'm looking at the notes here. Cyrus arrived, and he completed the appointing of the satraps, and then so he's the one who places the 3 overseers. One of them's Daniel. He's probably heard about Daniel by now. He knows Daniel's been an administrator there. He's a trusted, reliable old man. He's about 85, right? And he's dependable. He's actually even the one that said, Belshazzar, you're dead. Cyrus is coming in, okay? So he's kind of like on our side, it looks like. So Daniel gets appointed as one of the 3 over the other satraps. Okay? So here, follow through this very clearly because it's not hard. All right? When this kind of happens, we all know about corruption in government. All right? All right? So when Cyrus has these 120, again, back to the show, Yes, Minister, right? Okay? And so there's always this concern that whoever I appointed as governor over one province kind of thing is not doing it properly in the sense that he's skimming off stuff for himself. So that's why he has 3 guys oversee those guys to make sure no corruption's going on, okay? And most likely corruption is going on. All right? And so it's kind of like Joseph in the Old Testament snitching on his brothers to his dad, okay? Daniel and the other 2 guys are going to have to report to Cyrus if these guys are being honest or not. Right? So you start getting the ball rolling here, because why is Daniel going to get thrown into the lion's den? Is because these guys get jealous of Daniel. They don't like him. He has power that they don't want him to have, probably because he's cramping their style. They can't get done what they want to get done because he's a holy, righteous man. And as the text, we'll find out next week, says, they can't catch him on anything. They can't blackmail him. He hadn't done anything wrong. And so the only thing they can catch him on is his integrity, okay? And what a thing to be caught on, right? So that's what's going on. So the last thing I'll tell you real quick is, without doing any more dates here, is that when they come to this, and I'll probably say it again next week, when they come to this point, when they devise this scheme on how to catch Daniel, they make this thing about Cyrus issued this decree that no one can pray to any other person or any other god or to any god but you during the 30 days. It's like, so where's that come from? What's the meaning of that? I mean, how can he get by with, how would they think that suggestion makes sense? Well, this is how it makes sense. When Cyrus conquered Babylon, all the Babylonian gods were taken away. Okay, they were taken away, actually historically they know this, by Nabonidus. Remember, he's the dad of Belshazzar? He had taken him out of Babylon, okay, because he didn't want to get captured. So he took him out, okay? He took him out. He's trying to keep him safe, all right? It makes sense if you're understanding how the pagans understand their worship, okay? So he takes him out. Well, if you don't have your pagan god there, you can't pray to him because he's not there. So it makes sense. Cyrus, you're the representative of gods on earth. So they tell Cyrus, okay, do this because this will show that you are supporting the people because they're a conquered people. You want them to be endeared to you as quickly as possible so they don't try to revolt. All right? So say that I'm guarding your gods, and we're going to get your gods here eventually. But until then, you can pray to me, and then I'll take your message to the gods. See how that works? It makes really good sense. Diplomatically, it makes sense. And then the people will be happy because they know that they aren't without their gods. They just have Cyrus. They pray to Cyrus, and Cyrus will do this for them. And then it's only 30 days because that's all you need for him to get the gods back.
It wasn't some ego trip?
No. Well, that's what he says. That's the suggestion that that's what it is. And it makes, diplomatically it makes sense. It's like, you don't want to, as a conquered person, if you really want to have peace that's what you want in your kingdom, you don't want to put a thumb on them really hard at the start. You want to kind of make it, okay, we're going to ease into this. This will work. We'll all get together. I'm just your new ruler. You're paying your taxes to me now, not Belshazzar. But that's all it is. I'll make sure everything's okay. And religiously, that's an important thing for everybody. I'll make sure your religion's okay. Okay, so I will do this for you. That's the suggestion as to why this whole scene happens the way it happens. All right? We'll talk about that more next week, but that's where we're at. That's the background to this chapter. So this chapter literally starts the day after chapter 5. Some of these things, you get gaps of long, many years. This one, there's no gap. It's literally the next day, and it happens pretty quick. Okay? Let's close then with prayer. Most blessed Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for the truths you reveal to us through your word, and for, again, reminding us of how you are truly in charge of all things, and you govern all things for the good of your people. We pray that you'll continue to impress upon us how wonderful it is to know this truth, that when we face the challenges of this world, that we may also always know that you are the one still in charge. And we ask this through Jesus, our precious Savior and Lord. Amen.